of the American immigration system, and I can prove it point by point. I'm unafraid to speak the truth. This is just data-driven and experience-driven.
To rescind $1 billion that is in the pipeline right now for NPR and PBS, two outlets that routinely spew anti-American and anti-Christian propaganda. They sow racial division in this country, and they promote weird, woke values that most Americans find disgusting. Mr. Speaker, this is something that we have talked about for a long time. And finally, we have a president who is serious about rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal government, and this is the perfect place to start. Let's pass this rescission bill, let's end taxpayer-funded propaganda, and let's take our country back.
Who's funding the LA ICE riots? Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna gave a name. Neville Singham is the man funding these riots. Not a fringe conspiracy, a billion-dollar fact. Neville Roy Singham, former tech CEO, sold his company ThoughtWorks for nearly $800 million, then disappeared into Shanghai, where he now operates inside a Chinese communist propaganda ecosystem. He's not donating to charity. He's building a political influence machine. Tens of millions funneled through shell nonprofits like the People's Support Foundation into radical activist groups like the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the Answer Coalition, Code Pink, and Breakthrough News, groups tied to anti-ICE actions in LA. PSL was on the ground. They weren't random protesters. They had funding, they had infrastructure, and they had a message that mirrored Singham's pro-CCP, anti-American ideology. Meanwhile, Shirla, the respectable face of immigration advocacy, got over $34 million in taxpayer funding and worked closely with protest organizers. They're not violent, but they laid the foundation. This isn't just outrage. It's foreign influence agitation, funded by a billionaire ideologue with open ties to communist China. They're not just marching, they're maneuvering. And now we know who's bankrolling the moves. My friends, we are all anonymous, and we just pulled back the mask.
That was my favorite part about doing the book. I interviewed about 100 duty officers from the White House. And these are people that come, they're relatively young, people who come from all over the government, the CIA, the DIA, Defense Department, military. And, you know, some people like to call those people the deep state.
Deep state.
Well, the big thing I learned doing this book is that the deep state is packed with patriots. People who go to work every single day on the front lines of the most intense crises the country faces and do it to serve their country and to serve the presidency, not the president. They don't care about political parties. They're there to serve the presidency and the institution.
And they're doing it anonymously.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
As one of them told me, Mike Seeley said, you know, we serve in silence.
Yeah.
Why does Donald Trump continue to insist on politicizing the storm? The only person making an accusation that people are not getting what they've asked for is Trump. The only person who is politicizing this is Donald Trump. He's the one guy doing it. The doge of it all was essentially all the things that the federal government is spending money on for the most part is waste and fraud. But clearly, there are some things where spending money saves lives. And it may not save lives in the moment that you spend it, but at some point, somebody's life, somebody's child could have been saved.
The Reagan administration has proposed making airbags or automatic seatbelts mandatory for new cars. Critics urged immediate action. And finally, a federal report today predicted possible catastrophic warming of the Earth by the 1990s with a strong climate change. I'm Jessica Savage in New York. More news later on this NBC station.
Welcome to Truth with J.J. Carroll. Listen, this has become the biggest topic, propaganda. Because now, as I'm getting older, I believe in nothing and I believe in no one. I just don't. I know that's not a great way to live, but I don't think there's any other way. When you begin to go back in history and look at all the lies and you realize, wait a minute, there's a little difference between a lie and propaganda. And I have a guest coming on. His name's Brian O'Shea. I'll just tell you who he is. He has his own podcast, Investigate Everything. Former guy with all kinds of alphabets behind his name, if you can just figure out what that is. And he, for a long time, he and I did a podcast for a little over a year together. And he would talk about propaganda. And I would listen to him. And at first I was like, propaganda? Okay, I get a little bit of that propaganda. But then I start really listening to him and start looking around, opening my eyes. And I'm like, yeah, everything is propaganda. Nothing is true. Everything is a lie. It's manipulation. It's almost like we're in the Matrix. Isn't it funny how movies kind of tell you what's going to happen? Look at the Terminator. The exact same things that they're saying in the Terminator are happening right now. That AI is becoming alive. And everyone's like, oh, that's absurd. That's the people that are creating AI are warning us, and we're all like, oh, you guys are kooks. You guys are nuts. The propaganda and the way that we're being hit with propaganda every single day is why I want to speak to Brian O'Shea, because he is, I believe, one of the premier guys to talk about propaganda, because he did it in his career. Before I bring him on, I want to talk about two sponsors that I have, and that is sat123.com, sat123.com. You have to be prepared. And after you're listening to Brian O'Shea's interview today, you're going to want to run out and get prepared. I mean, you're going to want a sat phone. You're going to want a generator. You're going to want a Starlink. You're going to want something, because you shouldn't trust anyone. And you need to be prepared. You think the people in Kerrville, Texas, that were looking at the river bed from atop a bridge, and if I told them, hey, you see this dry riverbed? Yeah, they're seeding the skies right now. In about another 6 hours, there's going to be a torrential downpour and flood. What? And all your cell towers are going to be wiped away. All your cables you're not going to be able to communicate with each other. You would say you're crazy. You're one of those propagandists. Okay. 6 hours later, can't get a hold of anybody, can't call anyone. Same thing in North Carolina, same thing in Maui, same thing in Pacific Palisades. Ask the Iranians that just got bombed. Don't think that we're not immune. Just look around and you realize that we are susceptible to disaster. Be prepared. sat123.com/JJ. And the second sponsor that I want you to really support is Pet Club 24/7. I talk about this quite a bit. Had COVID multiple times, got remdesivir a couple times, should be dead by the grace of God, but I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my body that I have that COVID, that mRNA, whatever the hell they put in my body, I have it in there. It is a part of who I am, and I'm trying to get it out. How do I do that? Well, I use Pet Club 24/7 to increase my immune system that will purge these things from my body. Go to truthwithjj247.com, truthwithjj247.com. Look, I don't want to talk long, because I want to bring in my guest, because I find him to be fascinating to talk to for multitude of reasons, but on propaganda, I want to pick his brain. Brian O'Shea, welcome to the show. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, JJ.
Good to see you too. Is that a new studio? That looks pretty nice. You got a new residence.
This is, well, let me just adjust my camera. Sorry about that. No, it is my regular studio with some big bricks that I bought from Amazon.
It looks great. It looks great.
I looked at your studio and I got inspired. So I tried to mimic it.
Oh, man. Remember those days when you and I first started? Brian and I did a podcast 2024, beginning of 2024, maybe 2023 into 2024. Yeah. Oh, you want to see invasion. Bad lighting? Yeah, unrestricted invasion. I love that time. We had great discussions, but our lighting was bad, or my lighting was bad. Not as yours was great. But Brian, you have a show called Investigate Everything on dailyclout.io. You have a unique perspective. Before I play my first video, and then I want to hear your comment, just give my audience a good elevator speech. Why should we listen to you about propaganda? Why do I have you on as a as an expert on propaganda?
Well, JJ, thank you. I spent almost 3 decades in the intelligence community. Now, I was a contractor, which meant I was full-time, except my money came from a private company. In that time, in the last 10 years, I ended up getting assigned to a contract that was essentially influencing entire populations, in particular for the war on terrorism. So I was probably one of the best in the office, and I measure this by the assignments I would get. So I went from small assignments targeting small populations to meeting with people in big cities with millions of dollars and everyone getting a seat at the table. So as a contractor, when you are tasked with that, you're doing something right. It was all noble work. I was very happy with it. You're convincing teenage boys in different countries not to join terrorist organizations. And you're trying to change the opinion of the population about terrorist organizations, because believe it or not, in a lot of these countries, these terrorist organizations are seen as heroes, revolutionaries. They're legitimate authority. When I got out of that, I went into competitive intelligence, where the same techniques were used in a almost covert marketing way to get people's opinions to change about a certain product, a certain market. And then fast forward ahead to COVID, and all of a sudden I see what looked just like the program that I had helped create was being used all around us, from the graffiti on the walls with people with masks to certain colors being used, getting the messages inside the mouths of comedians, musicians. And what I saw was this effort by an invisible hand to recreate the reality we know.
It feels as if we're living in a created reality. Do you feel that, or do you think that I'm a little bit off?
I think it feels more like that if you're online than it does in there. It seems like there's 2 realities, and I say this all the time. There's the one that's on your screen, and then there's the one that's in your neighborhood or when you're out and about. For example, I just got back from London. We spent 10 days in England for a wedding and a small vacation. And London has a really bad immigration problem. But at the same time, if you just watch it on the screen, they're burning the city down every single day. Whereas when you're out and about, it's not that bad. However, in the real world, it's manipulated too, because all of the tourist hotels, the hotels you'd want to stay at, because if you stay at a bad hotel in London, it's a bad hotel. They're kind of like little islands of peace, like they enforce the law in those areas. So I myself could be getting manipulated to think it's safer in London than it is, because when you go to the airport, you'll see entire buildings adorned with Palestinian flags, like they've taken over the whole building. So are we living in a created reality? We're certainly living in a very heavily manipulated one.
I want to show you this video. This is Alex Jones talking about propaganda, and I just wanted to get your take on it. I saw this and it caught my eye, and I was like, I want to play this for Brian. It's about the Obama repealed the Smith-Mundt Act in 2012. Go ahead and play this for me, Logan or Thomas, if that's you in the control board.
News and new Judicial Watch documents, you name it, about how Google, Facebook, and Twitter were merged with the White House. They had government lavish facilities, 5-star, private jets, everything.
I don't understand how we got so toxic and just so divided and so bitter. And I get why sometimes people just don't want to pay attention to it.
Obama repealed the 1948 Smith-Mundt Act, which then permitted propaganda to be in broadcasting.
You have been subjected to the most massive, harmonized, globally coordinated propaganda campaign in the history of the Western world, full stop. With this campaign, the governments of many Western nation states have turned military-grade psychological operations strategies, tactics, technologies, and capabilities developed for modern military combat against their own citizens. Welcome to 5th-generation warfare. The battlefield is your mind.
Right here, this is you, okay? And all this surrounding you These are the liberties we've been given in this amazing experiment we call the United States of America. You've got folks out there whose plan it is to just eat away at your liberties.
Hard power ruled out as the dominant means to have an empire. The U.S. transitioned to a soft power empire, which would be dominated by agencies like the Central Intelligence Agency, democracy promotion programs at the State Department, later USAID, and the whole swarm army we're about to meet. But even right out the gate, the Central Intelligence Agency immediately moved into the media space to control the messaging that people around the world experienced.
It is legal for the agency, the sister agency, the FBI, and the rest of them to put out intentionally misinformation, propaganda to American citizens now.
What do you think? What's your comment on that, Brian?
Well, I think first we have to define what propaganda is. So propaganda is the intentional manipulation to push a certain agenda. So classic propaganda would be dropping leaflets on a population that say, you know, if you join this organization, it's like feeding your kids into a meat grinder, those type of things. So it's kind of like the broadcast. But then there's covert influence. Now, covert influence, I think, is what a lot of people are talking about, but they don't realize it. Covert influence is the covert efforts to change the opinion about a certain thing in one's life. Now, Bernays, who wrote the famous book on propaganda, he started in sales. And so it's a great example of covert influence, the way he would sell pianos. He wouldn't bombard you with ads that said, buy a piano because the pianos are great. He changed the perception of what a typical American household would look like, and that it would be incomplete without a piano. So it's what you're seeing, I think, on a broader scale. Yes, you're seeing a lot of propaganda. You're seeing a lot of stuff pushed at you on social media saying, think this way, no, think this way. And you see competing propaganda. What a lot of people aren't paying attention to is the covert influence aspect of this. So, for instance, if you get me and JJ arguing about the borders open, the borders closed, the borders open, the borders closed, the manipulation on the covert influence level may be to make the American public believe that that's a certain level of issue while they're doing something else with space or something like that. So, I really encourage people to think of your emotions. If you find yourself emotionally pulled into a topic and you're emotional while you're talking about it, you're probably being propagandized as part of a larger covert influence program to either distract you or to get you to think a certain way.
Well, how do you make that determination, Brian? Because there are times where I'm watching something and I begin, like you said, go down that emotional road and I think, whoa, hold on a second. What's really going on? This is a terrible way to live, just to be honest, to never understand. But how do you make that determination?
Well, you make the determination if you're being manipulated by testing your own theories. If you feel really strongly about a topic, you have to take yourself out of your head. It's difficult, but we used to say, beware of mirror imaging. Beware of thinking the other people think like you do. So what I always encourage people to do is actually talk to people who firmly believe in something that's opposite of what you believe and listen to them. And then basically try to explore those topics and prove them wrong or right, and then try to prove your own opinions on things wrong or right. And if you find yourself disproving a lot of things you believed in, you've probably been manipulated. And the way you disprove those is just with good old-fashioned research.
Well, let's dive into a topic that has dominated the news. That's the Epstein, and they call it the Epstein file. When I say the Epstein file, I mean, I don't care about the plain logs. I want the whole damn thing. I want the boxes of child porn and the rape and all that. I want all of it. But I see a narrative coming out right now, and it's from major influencers to people that go hunt for the children. And this is what I'm seeing. I would like to see if you're witnessing it too. I'm getting the narrative that, hey, let's move on. There's bigger things to talk about. There's better things to investigate. And my whole thing is, right when I heard that, I heard it again this morning after about the 12th time, and I went, holy cow, they're trying to normalize that it's okay. Look, it's okay that a child's been raped. I know it's horrible, but it's time to move on. It's time to let's just go. There's other things to worry about. Don't worry about all the elites and all the powerful that raped children and were honeypotted in this intel agency, whatever they were doing with him. Do you feel that, or is there a different narrative you're seeing being pushed?
Well, yeah, I definitely feel that, right up to Donald Trump kind of shaming people at a press conference for even asking the question about the Epstein case. And I'm sure you saw that press conference.
Yeah.
Where he's like, are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? You're damn right we are. Because we're talking, as you know, child sex trafficking is outpacing illegal weapons sales across the world. So this is a big issue because we're talking about one of the biggest financiers of child sex trafficking. And they want us to make that go away. It's a clear and present danger to the world. Why would we want that to go away? So yes, I agree with you. They are trying to do the move on narrative. And you hit on a good point, JJ, because where have we heard the move on narrative before? Do you remember? COVID.
Let's give amnesty to the COVID people. There's nothing to see here. Wait a minute. People are dying, right? They're dying. Your wife, Dr. Naomi Wolf, is one of the leaders in that, and you have been involved in that tied to the hip to your wife. Let's talk about COVID for a second. Let's talk about the move on. You're right. That's absolutely correct. Let's move on from Jeffrey Epstein. Don't worry about their raping children and that politicians are absolutely being manipulated. Same thing with COVID. Hey, we killed everybody. People are still dying. There's still all kinds of problems going on, but that's yesterday, Brian. Can we just move on? Can we?
Yeah,
that's incredible propaganda.
Yeah, and it's the thing is, like, I'm not saying the COVID people are tied to, they might be, but what I am saying is that when you inherit a government, as an administration does when they're elected in, you also inherit all the tools. Okay, and those tools are geared a certain way, and right now they're geared towards move on. Okay, move on. That's how they deal with everything, move on. And that's why the news cycle moves so fast. And JJ, I don't know if you've caught this, but the way they're doing this move on campaign is very simple. They have the offensive strategy of, like, how dare you ask about this? Pam Bondi trying to shame people, trying to make it seem like they just want to see child pornography when she said, we're not going to release those. I don't care who wants it. It's disgusting child pornography. That's engineered to make you feel bad about asking. No one wants to see child pornography. What people want they want the truth, and they want to trust their government, because if we can't trust, especially this administration, man, this country is done. So, there's that strategy. Then the other part of it is just the flooding of press releases from the FBI and the DOJ about meth arrests and border arrests and, oh no, Chinese arrests, all important. But what I noticed, JJ, and I'm so glad you brought up this topic, what I noticed was they tweet Bongino, Kash Patel, DOJ, all the people. They tweet about an $840,000 fine that some restaurant had to pay in Malaysia because of falsified information. They talk about a $1 million drug arrest from some Chinese nationals in Maine. They have all these tweets going on and I started looking from the 1st of July through the 11th. You know what they never tweeted about was the closing of the biggest case of child sex trafficking involving very important people around the world. They didn't say anything about that. Now, if they're confident that they closed the case in good standing, like they're confident that they did their best to unturn every stone, and now there's nothing left to unturn, so we're going to close the case, you would think that they would want to put that out and stand behind their work. Not a word about it on social media from the powers that be.
Well, let's stay on this topic of Epstein, and let's look at Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. This was a couple weeks ago when they were on Maria Bartiromo's show, and I called you, and we were talking. I said, Brian, I saw two men lying, right? And I wanted your take because you did this for a living as well as I did, but you did it on a higher level of listening, talking to people, and extracting the truth just by looking at them. And you said to me, yeah, they're lying. Why were they lying, Brian? Why? What's going on? What do you think? What's your professional opinion of what the hell is going on?
I think they're lying. Let me recalibrate that statement a bit. I don't know much about Kash Patel, just probably as much as you do. I was an avid watcher of Dan Bongino. I've never met him. He seems to me to be a very honest guy, and what I saw there was an uncertainty that they'd seen everything. So I don't think Bongino would get on. I don't know, he could, but I don't think he'd get on and say, I've seen all the tapes, he committed suicide. He probably did see a lot of tapes, but did he see all the tapes? And that's where the uncertainty comes from. Or did he see the real tapes, the real videos? And I think, what happened there is, like, what do we do? Did we see everything? We know we didn't see anything, but I guess I could say I saw all the tapes and therefore not lying. But there's an interesting theory that's popped up from this that maybe, and I posted this, I may have come up with a theory, I don't know, but I was thinking the other night, is it possible that Bongino, due to his high level of trust with his massive audience, it was one of the biggest podcasts out there, is it possible that he was hired into that position for this very moment, to sell the closing of this case to his millions of avid listeners and good patriots? Was that why he was put into this position? It could have been, because I found it odd that he was even picked to be the deputy director of the FBI, coming from Secret Service. Two totally different missions. So that could be it too. But yeah, as far as Kash Patel, I don't know. I mean, weird things happen when they get into office. They could fear arrest. Personally, I would just come out with it and say, hey, we got manipulated, because that's what I think happened. I think DOJ manipulated at least Dan Bongino, and he found himself in a checkmate position, to the point that there's rumors floating around now that he might resign over this.
Well, I, like you, I watched Dan Bongino. I saw his clips every day would come out. Either I'd watch his show or watch his shorts, right, that circulated. And he was like you and I. He was saying exactly the same things that you and I were saying. If the roles were reversed, Brian, and you and I were in the FBI and doing this, he would be doing his podcast and banging the table going, this is BS. Those guys are lying. So you and I are watching Dan Bongino, and we watch his mannerisms and his facial expressions. That was not Dan Bongino that's been giving interviews. That's not the same guy. That is not the same guy in any way. So what happened to him? What happened? Do you think he got manipulated? Do you think he's embarrassed and now he's trying to find his way out? He wants to resign, but here's the problem, Brian. He resigns. He can't go back to his old life. That old life's gone. It's gone. He's not going to have 2 million, 3 million followers because people are disgusted with what he's done. So that's how I feel. Well, do you think that I'm off on that?
He could not go back to that life, but he could come out a hero if he's the whistleblower on who I say is a very corrupt attorney general, that being Pam Bondi. Because we know she does this. We know she puts people in these positions where they're suddenly caught with their pants down. Look at the people we called the binder bimbos with the Epstein file release. According to several of those influencers, these are, you may remember, but I think it was February when they came out with the binders. There was nothing new there. Now, some of them just wanted the spotlight. But there are certain people who were there, and from what I heard, they didn't even know they were getting the binders that day. There happened to be a press corps there for a whole nother reason, and then suddenly they were ushered into this room. Boom, there's these binders. I walk outside and hold them up. Now, a lot of people have never been in that position or been directed by a very powerful person. They're just going to go with it because there's a high trust level with this administration from their supporters. So they're going to be like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but we trust Trump and we trust Bondi back then. Let's just do it. And it was a disaster. It was a PR disaster. So we know she does this. And, in hindsight, it's like I'm looking at Bongino. If you go back and you look at where he said, I saw the tapes, he committed suicide.
Yeah.
He kind of looked like a guy who'd just been violated in a prison cell. Like what just happened? And also we never know what you're going to, and you've been a public figure. Sometimes you get done with a press conference and you're hitting yourself in the head saying, why did I say that? Why didn't I just say what I wanted to say? So we don't know how we're going to react, not shilling for him. What I am saying is this, like right now, we're being manipulated. Okay. We're being covertly influenced because right now you and I are talking about everything on the conservative side, but we're not looking at what the other side is doing. So if you zoom out and you start seeing the coverage, another thing that's not happening is the left isn't really talking about Epstein. They're talking about MAGA's reaction to Epstein. And they're not highlighting the fact that, and the media are not highlighting the fact that a lot of their congresspeople and senators on the Democratic side have been demanding these files. Of course, they want them to see if Trump's on the files, but they've been demanding this since February, and that gets no press by their own media. So obviously, it's a big cover-up. Obviously, there's a client list. They all said it. Pam Bondi herself said it, regardless of how she tries to spin it. And there's big interest at stake here, really big interest. And JJ, don't forget the timing of. You know me, I'm not one to say, oh, it's the Israelis or, oh, it's just the Chinese. One thing about intelligence and assets is they're shared by many, many countries. So this could be one of these multi-country type of Five Eyes platforms, that being Jeffrey Epstein, that was used for blackmail purposes.
Well, let me tell you another theory that came, not theory, but propaganda movement, is that we can't see the list. We can't prosecute because there's so many people in positions of authority and power in the government and in finance that the country will fall. They're actually pushing this narrative, this propaganda that we have. In order to save the country, we cannot interrupt the child sex and rape that's been going on, and we continue. Maybe we can just slow it down now and let's just all look away. That's a narrative that's happening. Have you heard that? I saw that on Patrick Bet-David's show, of all shows. I heard it on another one or two very high-level influencer type show where they're saying, "Hey, this is too big. It's almost too big to fail." Remember that? It's too big to fail. Well, it's almost too big to have justice. Have you heard that?
I have heard that, and it's an upside down idea for people to say it's got to continue because there's bigger things at stake. What bigger mission do our intelligence agencies have and our law enforcement agencies than protecting our women and our children? I mean, that's the whole point. What could be bigger than that? I don't care if I die, if my wife and my children are saved. So to say that, it's like you've already thrown in the towel on your number one mission, and that is to protect the most important and vulnerable people in this country. You see what I mean? It's just,
yeah, it's crazy. But let's go one step further. So let's say that it all comes out, everything comes out. One thing that's going to shock America to her core is, for decades, our government knew that children were being raped and did nothing just to get information in order to blackmail people. How are you going to sell that to America? And maybe that's the big reason why we're never going to see it, is because when we understand that our government is evil, that they did the worst thing possible in the world is raping children, and they knew about it and they did nothing. It's like me being a former law enforcement, being in the Border Patrol. I witnessed somebody raping a child and it's a prominent person and me just going, okay, I didn't see that. I just need to go home. What? That's what our government's been doing for decades, Brian. That's sickening.
Well, and it's just more than our government too. It really, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this because I don't like these words. It's almost like a global cabal. It really is. And if you think of the timing, and I might contradict myself here because I said I don't think they're related, COVID and all that, but really, if you think about the timing of Epstein's arrest, like people knew for a long time. Okay, and then he gets arrested, and then he mysteriously dies in prison. One of the top experts in this, medical examiners, said, no, this guy was strangled. And then he's dead. He's done. Then all of a sudden, 6 months later, there's COVID. And all of a sudden, from Microsoft to the hotel industry to everything, a lot of people that were affiliated with Epstein, all of a sudden, everyone's in lockstep around the world. So I think it might be bigger than getting information. I think and I've said this from the get-go, it could very likely be that this is how the powers that be were able to create a global covert influence program to get everyone changing their opinion about everything from what a virus is, to death rates, to vitamin C not being able to help you, to staying indoors is good for you when you have an outbreak. It used to be fresh air, but they changed the reality of how people even think about everything from an outbreak to disease to viruses and to what even a vaccine is. I mean, JJ, they changed the definition. If you go to Webster's online and go to Wayback Machine, look at the changing definition. So someone like Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that he was able to go from college dropout and then teaching at Dalton School to all of a sudden he's going to, the Queen's birthday and hanging out with Randy Andy the Prince, that's impossible to gain that kind of access into that society. And I know I've kind of tiptoed around that society when I first met Naomi, but like everyone, and JJ, let's not forget, staying on the covert influence thing, that Epstein was deeply affiliated with something called the Edge Foundation. The Edge Foundation is how he got indoctrinated or got affiliated with all of these Steven Pinkers and all these well-known nonfiction, high academic type writers. And that was done through the Brockman Agency, which is, a literary agency that pretty much is a super agency that kind of has all of the biggest brain power names in the industry as clients. And all of a sudden, Jeffrey Epstein's in the middle of the Edge Foundation and going to dinners called the Billionaire Boys Club, which, by the way, Elon Musk attended. He got pulled right into that. So he seems like he was Epstein, if this blackmail platform really is real. And I say that because we're not seeing it. So I like to, stay objective. That how else can you get all of these major powerful people and agencies and organizations to all get lockstep behind this pandemic, which really has fundamentally changed the relationship of the people around the world with their governments, what they're willing to accept, what they won't accept. It turned Christians into the bad guys. It turned patriots into the bad guys. And it made everyone terrified of something that used to have a 99% survivability rate at the beginning of the pandemic.
I don't think that's far-fetched, Brian. I don't, because when you go back to those early days of COVID, it was insane. And then halfway through it, everybody was saying the same damn thing, and it made no sense. I remember, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I remember listening to this and telling my wife, this is insane. That this makes no sense. And we made agreement. We're not getting vaccinated. Our son's not getting vaccinated. We'll pull out of school, but we're not doing it. None of this makes sense. And then when you begin, and I'm going to pull this clip up. If you can pull this clip up for me, Thomas, it's the USAID. This is how they did it, Brian. USAID paid these media Outlets, Politico, 34 million. New York Times, 50 million. AP, 19.5 million. Reuters, 9 million. BBC, 3.3 million. Our government, our own government, paid news agencies to propagandize this narrative. All of this, the election wasn't stolen. Think of this, Brian. We mock Pravda in Russia, and our government was Pravda on steroids, and no one sees a problem with this. This is unbelievable, Brian.
Oh, and it was more than that, too. Let's not forget that if you go to the CDC's website, you can find a document, and I'll send it to you so you can put it up in the description, that says engaging the arts for vaccine confidence. So I don't know how much time we have, but I can give a little chronology here, like I gave you over text, of how well planned this was and how long planned this was. It was, if you go all the way back, and the lady on the first video had mentioned the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948. Well, that was she's right, that was modernized, in, I believe, 2013. And it was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. So what did that do? Well, that allowed, that lifted the prohibition of influencing and propagandizing Americans by our agencies. So that occurred right after, pretty close to the time when bin Laden was killed, Osama bin Laden. And all of a sudden you can propagandize Americans.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Yep. Keep going. No.
Yeah. And so you got, I mean, if you look at the series of events, you have bin Laden gets killed. Okay. Then you have the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. And look, I know the Smith-Mundt Act well, because we would have to run to the lawyers if all of a sudden we realized one of our programs, for lack of a better term, ended up on a English-speaking server. I mean, that was really, really heavily enforced. And then all of a sudden, hey, it's okay, you can propagandize Americans. Well, then in 2014, that's when Health and Human Services, first that I could find, it could be a little earlier, but it's right around that time when Health and Human Services started talking about something called the vaccine confidence activities. What are those? The same thing that covert influence is, leveraging those news outlets you just put up there, but also leveraging artists, churches, musicians, all manner of life to get people more confident about taking vaccines. Well, it was the vaccine confidence activities that really drove, that was the program, that was the covert influence program behind all of this messaging that you saw. And this is, you can find this in like the, the Save America, I forgot the big bill that Biden passed in 2021. Sorry, a little brain freeze there.
The big Build Back Better.
Something like that. Yeah, it was like March 2021. Well, if you go to the section in there that's labeled as miscellaneous, it's one of the big chapters in it. You will find, I think it's like subsection 3201, I believe. You'll find vaccine confidence activities got funded for $1 billion. But then if you keep going, there's adjacent activities to that propaganda program or that covert influence program. That brings that total up to $47 billion all in. And then if you look at like the door knocking program that Psaki was talking about to get people more confident about vaccines. Well, JJ, what also happened around 2014, suddenly counterterrorism wasn't as big of a deal anymore in the intelligence agencies. So it's my belief, and I don't know, but it seems that the program that came out of the agency I worked at, the program that I helped enhance, I didn't create it, but I definitely added a lot to it. That program seems to have been sold to Health and Human Services by that intelligence agency. And programs are sold and lent back and forth all the time. That's like, NSA gives, subscriptions of SIGINT data to most agencies. So this is very common. But it seems like counterterrorism disappeared as a major focus around 2014. And then all of a sudden vaccine confidence, using the same pattern manipulation, population manipulation, suddenly was just amplified. And by 2020, it went into hyperdrive. And boy, maybe it's a coincidence, but all the same people that we know were on Epstein's plane, they also were big influencers for the vaccine and also for the dangers of this virus. So I don't believe in coincidences. Haven't finished the investigation, but it's something that can't be ignored. And coming all the way back to Epstein, that's why it's important, because if they can do this so well during COVID, and COVID didn't really work out, I believe, the way the powers that be wanted it to, what the hell's going to be next? A fake nuclear war, and we all hide in our basements while there's really nothing going on, but someone else steals our land and our property, or we get murdered, or we're told to walk into the ocean. Who knows? But these things are important. And Epstein's important. It might seem like a small deal to some people, but that's how you get to the big deal. That's how you get to the top of the mystery. That's how you get to a case, is you find a thread and you pick at it and you just unravel the whole thing that way. So I encourage everyone, do not let this die down, because it's connected to so much. And on another show, and with your permission sometime, I'll have to tell you of our direct overlap with the Epstein case. It is mind-blowing, and it falls into that sequence of events.
Brian, I think you're absolutely correct, and I've been saying this for quite a while. Stop looking at Epstein as a man. Like, I want Epstein, I want him. Stop it. It's bigger. He's representative of the big problem. He's just the figurehead, if you will, of all of that. That is why you're seeing this shame by Donald Trump, and you're seeing this, well, everyone just move on. It's not that big a deal. Well, what if it's not that big a deal? Then why don't you just show us what's under the hood? Hey, your car's messed up, but it's okay. Let me look at that engine. No. Don't. I'm not going to let you open that hood. Everything's fine. Just trust. No, man. I can't turn my car on. Yes, you can. That's what it feels like. Hey, Epstein, it's not that big a deal. Okay, well, let me look at it. Let me look at that engine. It's not that big a deal. Well, no, you can't look at it. Just move along. Whoa, hold on a second.
And look,
and I think, Brian, okay, go. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, follow up on that.
No, I was going to say really quickly to your point. I want to encourage people, left and right. Don't think of left and right anymore. We're beyond that. When I see people, I posted something about Epstein the other day, and someone posted some nonsense. The same old picture of Donald Trump and Epstein. I was like, I don't care who's at the parties. I don't care who's involved. Okay. This is the most dangerous. This is connected to, I think, one of the more dangerous things that a group of global governments has decided to take part in, to really change the way we view governments and to really increase the authority of that public-private partnerships that has been brought back at big time with COVID. And people, this is not Democrat, Republican. This is evil. Its purest form, being executed by the very people, either unwittingly or wittingly, that we're supposed to trust to protect our women and children and us.
Brian, do you find it absolutely mind-boggling that when we're not talking about, hey, Epstein smuggled some money from Health and Human Services, or some government entity gave him $1 billion like they did Stacey Abrams and all those type of people. We're talking about a man that was embroiled in sex trafficking. His pimp is in jail for 20 years for trafficking children that we don't know about to people we don't know about. Why she's in jail? She has, and they go, well, there's no list. Yeah. She has a black book with 2,000 names in it. And you're right that all you have to do from a law enforcement perspective is squeeze down that black book and let all those roaches start screaming for I need a deal, I need a deal. And then we get everybody. But what's amazing to me is how the media has been able to manipulate and how destroyed our cultural norms are. That when you and I come out, or people like us come out and say, I want to know what this man did, he was raping children, and you have a segment of our society that says, no, that's right wing, that's crazy, instead of saying,
right,
yes, I want to know. Can you imagine if Joe Biden said, I'm going to appoint a special counsel, they're going to get to the bottom of Epstein, and everyone's going to be arrested? You and I would be cheerleading for Biden, going, damn it, I guess I'm going to have to vote for him next time. This is unbelievable what he's doing. I want justice. If that means the entire Republican Party is pedophiles and got to go to jail, I want them all arrested. I want the Republican Party to be decimated. But you don't see that, Brian, on the other side. And you're right. This is not right or left. It is simply evil. Evil, and America's not doing anything to stop it. That is the biggest problem that I have. If you believe if you believe P. Diddy and Epstein are the only honeypots going on, come on. Are you really that naive? This is perpetuating and going on. The CIA is still involved in this, and that's sickening.
Yeah, and look, it's just one up. You see what I mean? It's like blackmail's just, one link in the chain, one spoke in the wheel here. Like, there's all sorts of other operations that go on, and everyone's focused on this one. It's super important. But if we let this one slide, what about the ones we don't know about? There are, ops I can't even talk about on a global scale that would blow your mind. And, blackmail, yes, it's a very useful tool. There's other useful tools too. There's everything from chemical manipulation to psychological manipulation. And these things are happening. And so what's crazy about it, JJ, you touched on this, is, the left and the right, and I see the Brits and the Canadians as well, are complicit in doing this move on operation. Okay. And it's like everyone is, and of course the Brits are doing it. They've got their own people directly involved. But we know we work with them. We have the Five Eyes. We all work together on these things. There's no way this Epstein op was just the US, not with the level of international touch that it has. But you see on the left, they're trying to suppress it through omission. On the right, they're trying to suppress it through shame. Honestly, I think the left is a little better at the manipulation than the right, because the right just tells you to shut up and yells at you the way the left used to. And so, but the fact that they're all in step trying to make this story go away, that should be alarming to the blue-haired people that visit my neighbors upstairs, to, the old Republican who's next door. Because what happens when they decide, okay, we're not going to do sex trafficking, but yeah, we got 1.3 billion people in China, and 3.5 million of them need new livers. Well, there's going to be a bunch of people disappearing, and then a bunch of media and powers that be saying, no, they didn't disappear. Those healthy people with the good organs, they didn't disappear. There is no human organ harvesting. I mean, this can directly impact everyone, right down to your children. And people have to take this seriously. This is so big. I'm just, it's just consumed all my time for the last, few years, but especially in the last few weeks. And it should be consuming everyone's time.
It should. I have 5 minutes left with you, and I want to ask you this final question. And you alluded to this, that you are now seeing the sharing of operations or plans or strategic plans. Do you see professionally what we were doing in the Middle East, Africa, wherever we were doing it? We're using that same playbook here in America. Do you see the same things happening in America that you're seeing propaganda and the changeover in foreign countries? Do you believe our government is utilizing the same thing here in America right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest, and contrary to popular belief, I don't think here in America it's being run by the CIA like a lot of people want to believe. And look, a lot of people believe that because the CIA is the only independent intelligence organization in our intelligence community. They report directly up, whereas NSA belongs to Department of Defense and so on and so forth, or Homeland Security now. But the thing is, I see HHS doing that. And it has that CIA feel to it because I think it was formerly a CIA program. And HHS has the reach. See, the thing is, the CIA doesn't have the assets on the ground here stateside because this isn't their stomping ground. Their stomping ground is overseas. I'm not saying they don't do bad things, not saying they don't do good things. This just is not their area of operations. But who does have reach into your schools, into your elections, into guns? Just look at the HHS organization chart and look at their budget. As I showed you on our show, it's bigger than Homeland Security's budget, and it's powerful. And so, yes, I do absolutely 100% see that manipulation. I think they're going to get better at it. I think people kind of saw through the vaccine confidence activities that were happening. But yeah, I do see it. It's going to get more sophisticated. And here's the thing, JJ, think of covert influence like a record player. Okay. You can take a record, you put the COVID record on, you're going to play that. That's your propaganda. That's your agenda. You take that off, and guess what? The next record they put on that vaccine confidence model, Ukraine. And it was my son that pointed this out. He said, "Hey, Dad, it's weird. I'm getting Ukraine messages from my school from the same number that was giving me COVID messages." I was like, "That's a very astute observation." Thank you. But yeah, so I do see it. And one more thing I'll say is, there's so many good citizen detectives out there. I'm so proud of the American people who have taken it upon themselves to look into things, with a microphone or a tweet even. And I see some really great work going on from people who are stay-at-home moms or, just had to do something. That's good American spirit. I will really, really warn those people of two things. There's good influences are on our side. But remember, as an influencer, it's like being a consultant. You're only as good as your last job. Just because the Substack got it right 9 times doesn't mean they're going to get it right 10 times. You still have to investigate everything and check their sources. The other thing I'll say, too, is don't look for the Star Chamber. Don't look for the Lex Luthor behind it all. Just look at what's going on, collect it, put it in a timeline, and then what you will see is that this is not a Star Chamber. This is not men adjusting their monocles and twisting their mustaches in a dark, smoky room. This is a current. This is a system, if you will. This is an ecosystem of evil. And how do you stop it? Well, you stop it one manipulation attempt at a time and exposing one person at a time. And if everyone does that with as many people as we have looking into these things, we could have a lot of impact.
I agree with that. Brian O'Shea, thank you for giving me 45 minutes to your time, our audience. I think you're a voice that needs to be heard over and over again. And give me the place where we can find you the quickest and has the most impact.
I would say 2 places. Go to Brian O'Shea SPI at Brian O'Shea SPI on X, and then go over to investigate everything with Brian O'Shea on Rumble, or you could also find it on dailyclout.io. And I dive into all these things. Right now, I'm dead focused on Pam Bondi, her clients, one which was Pfizer, by the way. I'm going to be focusing on her for the next few weeks. It's a live show. I invite everyone to be on there. And JJ, I'd love to have you on anytime.
Great. I would love to. Everyone go see his show. Brian does in-depth. I'll give you a quick, I got 15 seconds. I remember that I was doing a debate with someone. I got done it, and Brian calls me and goes, you were debating. He was Antifa. I was like, what? He goes, yep. Just got to dig a little deep, and that's Brian O'Shea. Everyone follow Brian O'Shea at Brian O'Shea SPI, and all of his links are on the bottom of the screen. Brian, thank you so much, my friend. Hope to see you soon.
You will. Thanks.
Brian, no problem. Brian O'Shea, propaganda, it's a big deal. It is everything that we need to focus on because we are being manipulated. As I've said on my show many, many times, tell me one segment of our society that has any kind of control over your life that you trust. Go ahead. I'm waiting.
All right, welcome to Code Blue. It is July the 23rd, 2025, and we're so honored to be here on